Hello everybody, it's Freddy here, back on the desktop with this Grabs book, Space 1889 by Games Designers Workshop, which came out in 1988, and it was one of the series of games by GDW which kept to their naming format. So they had Twilight 2000, which I covered last week, they've got Space 1889, and they had Traveller 2300. They liked the format of name and then a year. Space 1889 obviously also a parody on the name of Space 1999, the science fiction show from the 70s, which I was very surprised at because I didn't know that that was a big thing in America. Obviously it was massive over here. Jerry Anderson being a British showmaker who made Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, and went on to make Space 1999. But I had no idea it was a thing in America, so when this came out, I was very surprised by its naming. Space 1889, though, it's a role-playing game set in an alternate history. Okay, that lets you know that Mars is involved. But it's an alternate history where Edison invented the ether screw, I think it's called, which allowed them to make flying ships, which could travel the space between planets. Basically, going along the theories of the Victorian period, that they did not believe that light could pass through empty space, that light had to be passing through something. So the Victorian scientists had named this substance ether, or ether, or E-T-H-E-R. And some theorized that you'd be able to come up with a propeller that would drive ships through it. And in the alternate history of this, Edison invented one. I'm trying to find a picture of a ship. We'll just keep flicking as I talk. So he's invented this engine which will take you between planets. However, it does not work in atmosphere. So the ship that he built, we've got some indications of early ships there, very tiny down in the corner. The ship that he built had a massive balloon with a gondola underneath with this ether screw. It lifted itself high enough out of the atmosphere for the ether screw to take over, and then it went to Mars, which they discovered was colonized. No, not colonized, inhabited. He crashes his ship there and finds that one of the trees on Mars is made out of liftwood, a anti-gravity wood construction. So he manages to repair and return, and within a few years, other people are building ether screws. They're colonizing Mars for access to this wood, which allows you to make flying ships. So there are British fleets of flying ships. There's the big page on flying ships. You've got the aerial vessels, various flying vessels made out of liftwood. You've still got some blimps. And you've got ones which use ether screws to travel between planets. So on Mars, they have discovered the Martians, living in ruined cities along the canals. A bit Martian Chronicles, but definitely more Victorian. There's a Martian warrior there. So there's the canal Martians, who live along the canals and are the most civilized. You have the hill Martians? No, what are they called? A more rugged, bestial kind. They're the raiders and the rebels against colonization. And then you've got the high Martians, which are truly bestial monsters, which can fly and all that. You've got three types of Martians. More deck plans for ships. Let's see if I can find. We've got stuff about the moon here. We've got stuff for Venus, Mars. Here we go. Can we find any? Illustration of a Martian city with the canals. The canals leak now, and basically they just act as paths for trade caravans. I've got a feeling I've missed the species completely. They're the high Martians, the crags. Hill Martians are the more sort of savage ones. And then you've got canal Martians, who are the very civilized ones. You've obviously got other monsters living on it. So you've got sort of Victorian adventurers travelling to Mars alongside civilized and more savage Martians. Lots of beasts on this alien world, lots of adventures, lots of Victorian sort of steampunk technology. And it leads to the game having a very interesting tone. I'm not really sure how well I'm covering it here, but you've got Mars, you've got Venus, which is basically planet of the dinosaurs, sort of lizard men and I believe actual dinosaurs wandering around. Here you go, sort of jungle pictures. Exploration of Venus. You've got, there they are, the dinosaurs, basically tyrannosaurs, stegosaurs, triceratops, brachiosaurs, or diplodocus, are they? But you've got various dinosaurs on Venus. So you've got that kind of adventuring going on. On Mercury, you've got one side towards the sun, which is hot, one side which is away from the sun, which is cold, and a thin, I think it's like 150-mile ring around it, which is actually colonizable. The ether screws are solar-powered. They require on sunlight to boil their boilers to turn the screw. So they cannot venture outside the asteroid belt. So nobody knows what's going on the worlds out further out. You basically got Earth in the Victorian era, Mars with its races becoming colonized, and British setting up for Liftwood to outfit their fleet and all that kind of stuff. You've got Venus, which is monsters and lizard men. Mercury, if I go back, does it actually tell us what Mercury's like? Oh, we've got the moon, Luna, has the selenites in it. So it's very, was it Jules Verne's Trip to the Moon? Weird bug-like creatures living in caves beneath the moon's surface, the selenites. No, I think it's another H.G. Wells one. My memory's failing me. But anyway, it sort of picks on Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, that kind of stuff for its background. You've got steam-powered spaceships. You've got Victorian adventurers. You've got American cowboys herding beasts, alien beasts on an alien world. It's all very interesting and a unique setting. And I believe that Space 1889 has actually been released with newer rules and is still being published to this day. But this is the original version, 1988's. It's a fun game. It's really, there's the maps of Venus. I love old cartography, even if it just looks like it's old cartography. So, Space 1889, I would recommend it. I think it's a really cool setting. There's some really interesting adventures out there. There's one I seem to remember where you have to stop saboteurs destroying the space heliograph because there's no radio, because this is steam technology in Victorian, it's before radio was invented. Basically, you've got giant mirrored heliographs, flashing lights from Mars and Earth to transmit and semaphore messages between the worlds. And as I said, one adventure terrorist sees it to cut off contact with the colonies. And lots more. It's a really interesting setting. Very well done. I recommend it. And that's us for Retro RPG this week. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.